And I don't know how many people are really interested in what a past master is effective for. How many in here are past masters? 2 of you? Very good, I am as well. One of the greatest things that we can do, my name is Tom Dangelo, and I'm the presenter here for this particular one, and it's something that I put together. Here we are. The yin and yang of a lodge or Pandora's box. Now there's a problem sometimes with past masters. We have past masters who, as soon as they leave the East, become the most brilliant man in the world. They know everything, have seen everything, have done everything, and done it better than anybody else. They know their work better, and they'll sit on the sidelines and mouth the words. Half of them not correct. And people go, oh no. And so he just sits there because nobody asks him to do anything. Were you ever asked to do anything after you were the past master?
Yeah.
Okay, how about you?
Yes.
Good. They put you to work. A lot of times they'll take the past master, the immediate past master, set him outside the door of the lodge as the timer. And that's a disservice to the lodge. It's a disservice to that man who was a master of that lodge. And we need to do something about it. Is your lodge a strong lodge? By strong, I mean, does it have good attendance? Is it financially sound? And do people enjoy coming there? If you have a strong lodge, you have a strong past master's core, because the strength of the whole is in the sum of its parts, and that's on the, part of it's on one pillar and part of it's on the other pillar of the Capitol building. I'm trying to remember which building it is, but it's written there. I think it's on the pillars of the Supreme Court, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that one. Past masters form the core of a mentor pool. And if you use them as part of your mentor pool and ask them to become mentors and not tormentors by interrupting the lodge and doing things that are counter to the sitting master's authority, then we're okay. We do have some past masters who take it upon themselves to become the bully pulpit from the floor on anything they do not like, necessarily because it wasn't done in his year as master. We can't allow that to happen. You cannot allow a past master to take over your lodge, but you can certainly ask him to contribute because there's valuable information there. It took him a long time to become the master of the lodge. Why not use the information he's collected and keeps up here in his brain housing group? A strong lodge is an involved lodge. What is an involved lodge? Is it involved in the community? Is it involved in youth groups? Is it involved in things that promote the welfare and health of the lodge? Does it promote masonry in general? Those are the characteristics of a strong lodge and an involved lodge. And it does not necessarily mean that you have to do 27 car washes and support every Job's Daughters group and so forth. But if you're going to be involved and be interacting with each other, then you have to be involved. And the past masters can certainly facilitate part of that, especially to your junior officers. If you need some help, the past master is a good resource. And what I would suggest you do is you walk outside the door, if you do not know some of these past masters, and take a look up on Vulture's Row up there where all of our pictures are at, and ask somebody, what kind of a master was he? Because you may not know the man. He may not have been a Mason that long. And he may not come to the lodge as often as he used to. But if you believe he has something to contribute, then pick up the phone and ask him if he'd come down. Don't tell him he's got a job, because Lord knows we've had enough jobs. But ask him if he'd come down and help. Assist. Assess. Get him involved. Don't let him dominate. This is one of the problems. You get someone who has a strong personality, and he was the past master of the lodge, and he tends to dominate everything. He's the most, probably, the word that I use the most often is pedantic. That's an individual that knows everything and will tell you in a heartbeat they know everything. They know this, they know that. And that has a tendency to dampen the spirit of other people because they don't have an opportunity to contribute or to evolve and develop themselves. It's not healthy. So if you have somebody that is particularly pedantic, you may wish to take him aside and speak to him and say, look, we really do appreciate your helping. But by doing this, you are not allowing other people to participate. You're smothering us. Please, please don't do that. We need to grow. We need some room in the sunshine. So there's a way of talking with the past master that will allow him the dignity of being able to contribute and not feel that he's been cast aside. And I see some lodges that just absolutely let the past master sit there, and they sit in their own. And then in fact, this one lodge that I go to, and I love to do it. I don't do it that often, but when I go, I like to do it. They got a little row up in the corner. And past masters, by seniority, those seats are theirs. And they sit, I'm dead serious about it. And if I go to that lodge and I get a chance and I get in there early, I'll sit in one of those seats. And I just, well, it's just the devil made me do it, but it's one of those things. It's this sense of superiority that I really have a problem with. We're all Masons. We meet upon the level, we part upon the square. There aren't necessarily any wrong answers. There's some less qualified answers, but I don't know there's a wrong answer to anything. It's all in how you look at it, so we should never deride a person for his answer, but maybe we can improve upon it, and we have to be careful. Yes, sir.
I took a couple of apprentice Masons to go visit a lodge I'm rather fond of, and they decided that they wanted to sit up on the north side of the lodge, close by where the podium was.
Yes.
And a couple of old past masters tottered in and walked up and looked at them rather sternly and said, "You can't sit there." And I was standing off talking to somebody, and I said, "Well, why? Why not?" "That's the past master section." I turned around and I said, "What the senior brother hasn't explained to you yet is that it's traditionally a place of darkness, and thus the past masters feel most comfortable there."
Thank you. That's very nice. I like that. That's very appropriate. That's probably in that particular instance.
Very Darth Vader.
Don't let them sit on the sidelines and do nothing. Come on, they have knowledge, they have experience, and if they're going to sit there, put them to work. Masonry is a labor. It is not necessarily just a place where you go and sit and listen to people talk and watch people walk around the floor with sticks. That's not what we're about. We are at labor on the first degree, we are at labor on the second degree, or we're at labor on the third degree. And labor means that we are doing the work of the lodge, and everybody in the lodge should be involved in the work. That includes the past master.
Going back last year after I went back to my Blue Lodge, after
Yes.
last year,
Yes.
part of my report was obviously the mentoring.
Yes.
And the idea of, creating the past masters as the lodges and mentors for the younger
Yes. Go ahead.
master masons,
Yes.
fellow craft, or
Yes.
apprentices, so they can sit there with them and answer questions that they might have, go through the standard work with them.
Sure.
Keep them more involved.
I understand.
To be able to share that knowledge and experience.
That's right, brother. You're right. And I've got to stay on track here. I've only got so
I know,
many
I'm
minutes. And they've got me on camera, and this is my photogenic side and not my hallucinogenic side. And I told them earlier, but they're not convinced yet. When you are an officer of the lodge and you're dealing with a past master, a person who sat in the East, as well as any Mason, if you're going to play the game of politics, understand there are consequences. And if you do not do it well, you will lose control of your lodge. And this is a quote that was given to me by an old Nisei Navy chief, Japanese-American Navy chief, and he told me one time, he said that politics was like dancing on the edge of a samurai sword. He said, do it deftly and do it well, and you will never get hurt, but slip one time and you lose everything. So if you're going to play diplomacy, meaning other than looking for diplomatic solutions, you had better be deft at what you're doing, because a game of politics is not something we need to play in a lodge. Past masters should never have domain over a stated meeting. The master is given a gavel at installation, and it says, I will place in your hands an additional insignia. I place in your hands this gavel and additional insignia of your rank and authority. Wield it, my brother, with prudence and discretion, firmly but never arbitrarily, to the end that good order and harmony may be preserved. And I have been to some lodges which suffered from a thing called the Stockholm Syndrome, as I like to call it. What we have is we have 2 or 3 or 4 brothers who have been there for years, and they have this agenda, and every meeting they capture the floor for a period of time. And people who were members of the lodge who got tired of it left, and they don't come back. They may still pay their dues, but they're not sitting in the lodge doing the work of masonry and the work of the lodge. Because every time they went to the lodge, the same thing happened, and they got tired of it. And those that stayed there eventually adapted the beliefs and behaviors of those that kept the floor for 10 minutes, for 15 minutes, every state of communication. They became Stockholm Syndrome Masons. And nobody likes that label, but then I put it on them one day. I said, look, you guys, this is what you're suffering from. And it was almost like I hit them with a wet fish. With what? I said, look, this is what's happening. Because I had been on membership development for a couple of years, and I'd looked at these problems. And I came up with these answers. People do not like the brutal truth, but sometimes it has to be a little bit in your face. It doesn't have to be abusive, but you should be honest with them. And we try real hard not to allow that to happen, and we don't allow past masters, if at all possible, to take over the lodge because, well, I had a very successful year. Well, that's fine, and we're very happy that you did. Please help us make our year successful. And that's the art of being able to ask them to help without allowing them to take it over. It's a delicate process, but it will work if you are diligent in how you do it. Can't deny this remark. The lodge will shrink in strength and influence if fewer and fewer members and guests fill the sidelines. You get a couple of crotchety old past masters in there, or just people that like to take the floor and push their own agenda, whatever it might be, and don't allow the process of the lodge to work its way along as it normally would, then you have folks that are dissatisfied because they didn't come to the lodge to watch a bunch of people argue. They didn't come to the lodge to listen to poor ritual. They didn't come to the lodge to watch poor floor work. That's where the past master comes in. He can teach the new Mason, and you as well, who may not be so new, good ritual, if they are good at ritual themselves. Get them, use them. Floor work, get them, use them. If you can find a past master who could be your ritual coach, and you can use him for that purpose, don't allow him to take over the ritual position necessarily, but to sit and observe and offer input, then you will be milestones ahead of a lot of other people, because you will have somebody that's knowledgeable and willing to help. And that might be the only job that you want him to do, because maybe that's the only thing he can do. Perhaps he's incapacitated to the point that he can't go on work parties or any of those other things, but he can sit and diligently listen and give you input. And that's what you're seeking. You're seeking input. Remember, when you ascend to the east, you are Solomon. Solomon sought input. And for those of you who were not in the class I talked about before, where Solomon had the 2 women that came before him with one baby and said, this child is mine, and the other lady said, this child is mine, and so Solomon asked them to present their cases, and after they presented their cases, Solomon said, bring the baby and a sword, and cut the baby in half, and give it to the woman. give 1/2 to each woman. It's in the Bible. And one woman said, no, don't do it. Here, give the baby to the lady. Give the baby to the lady. Solomon looked at her and said, the baby is yours. Take it. Because that mother wanted to save her baby. Solomon made no perceived notion, had no earlier notion that he had decided immediately that he was going to do it. He allowed people to present their cases and he made his judgment. When you're the master of the lodge, you need to listen to both sides and weigh it, take it under counsel, and then make your judgment. Don't come to the lodge with an agenda. It will only hurt you. Now, if you have something you'd like to have brought before the lodge, maybe you get an old past master to bring it to the floor for you. Say, hey, look, we need to talk about this, but I shouldn't probably show favor one way or the other about this issue. Would you bring it to the floor of the lodge for discussion? If he brings it to the floor of the lodge for discussion, that allows you to sit there and weigh the case, rather than coming in and offering your opinion from the east. It's a delicate situation, but it can be done. I'm giving you ideas on how to use a past master without allowing him to necessarily sit on the sidelines and not do anything, and help you do something, and allow him the dignity of being recognized as a past master and being recognized for the things that he has done and the knowledge that he has. This will make a stronger lodge. It really will. They will be willing to take the younger Mason, who's sitting in the northeast corner of the lodge in a place of darkness, and bring him to light. So perhaps the past master could be up there then. What is lacking in your programs or your fellowship that could contribute to the decline? That's always a question we ask ourselves. Why don't we have as many people here as we used to have? Well, I can't answer your question for you. That's a question you have to ask. But I would suggest that you perhaps get 2 or 3 past masters together with you and allow them to give you their view of it. And perhaps you can give them some duties that they could perform for you to improve your meetings. How about, Masonic education? If you get a past master to come to the floor of the lodge, at a state of communication and give a 10-minute talk on, I did one this morning, tennis virtue, on brotherly love, relief, or truth. One of the virtues, temperance, prudence, etc. About a 10-minute talk. Where did it originate from? What does it mean? Etc. A 10-minute talk. Give him one of those, ask him if he would do it, and allow him to do it. Now, I also heard an interesting conversation over here a couple of minutes ago before we started this. This brother over here has people interviewing past masters and recording as much of the interview as possible to be saved for historical reasons. Because when that past master dies, and we have not found out what he did in his year, and we don't know of his journey, and we don't know what part of the history of the lodge he played, that he dies, and we don't know that. And he goes to the grave with that history. And it is important for the health of our lodge and the strength of our lodge to know the history of our lodge and the importance that everybody played in it. Not only that, but the importance of how that lodge interacted with the community, how it helped to develop the community, and what part the community leaders played in the early days of the lodge. Franklin Lodge number 5 has a long, long history of that. And the only reason I know that, as I said, I'm the past master of that lodge, and I've enjoyed it. If you want a strong lodge, then you've got to get involved. You've got to get some people that know something about the lodge, because some of us are just fledglings in this. We've got men that have been around 50 and 60 years. Have you ever sat them down and said, tell me about it? Spell me, my brother. Spell me. Spell me is an old thing. It comes from loggers up in Canada. Up along the Minnesota border, you'd get 2 people on a big saw. And one would invariably be stronger than the other, and they'd start pulling on a saw and cutting down a tree. And And pretty soon the littler and the weaker would get tired. He'd say, "Spell me, my brother." What does that mean, to spell me, my friend? And what that meant was, let's sit down for a while I rest. You tell me a story. Let's take a rest spell. And that's when they talk. And then get back up and hit the saw again. So, yes, sir.
Twice now for our past masters nights, we have asked our past masters who we broadcast they were doing this.
Yes.
We would ask that they would come and be prepared to talk for 5 minutes or whatever they were comfortable with about what they can remember of their term as past master, what they felt especially proud of, and what they would like to see us do that might harken back to what they really enjoyed or thought we benefited from.
That's a good way of
Got a
doing
very
it.
good turnout as a result of it.
One of the things that I've seen in some of the lodges, and it distresses me no end, is that you'll have a past master sit on the sidelines and someone will say, "Hey, bud, do you want to run for master?" "I'll never do that again." And here's a young Mason that would love to go. He's thinking very seriously about getting into the line. He goes, "Whoa, well, that doesn't sound good." He doesn't want to do it again. Once you've learned it, you should use it. And so we have to caution our brothers, our past masters, about comments like that. It does not add to the health of the lodge. Oh, here we go again. We're gonna play with this some more. Begin to hate my PowerPoint. Here we go. How can it be altered to provide a more positive outcome? The decline. How can you alter this decline to provide a more positive outcome? Like I said, you're going to have to, and I don't like the word committees, groups, coffee clutches, whatever you want to call it. Everybody likes to have committees. I'm afraid that sometimes we have too many committees for the number of people that we have in the lodge. And people get tired of committees because committees must be productive if they are to exist. They should not be there because it's required as a name on a piece of paper. You can turn in negative reports on committees if you need to, health and comfort, etc. And it's important to have a health and comfort committee, or at least one person involved in that, so that you know the health and comfort of the brothers of your lodge and the past masters and the widows, etc. Because it's incumbent on us as Masons to care for our brothers, their widows and orphans. It's part of being a Mason. And we can get past masters to do that if we ask them properly and in the right way. Some past masters go away from a lodge for one reason or another and just sit at home. And if you can encourage them to come back to the lodge during past masters night and contribute this 5-minute talk or this 3-minute talk, you might be able to break the ice and get them to come back to the lodge and become members again. I mean, you know, contributing members, not members on a piece of paper. It's important that we do this. Now, how do we do it? Well, it's up to you. You have to arrive at a conclusion that will allow a comfortable return, if you will, however you wish to put it. Some people just don't come because nobody asked. And some of them, and myself included, are getting older, and it's a little more difficult to want to get out of bed and get out of the house at night, you know, and my eyesight's not as good as it used to be. Mine is pretty good, but we have these problems, so now we have to think about a way of getting our past masters to lodge. So if we got a couple of young brothers that are willing to go out and pick these past masters up, they might get a heck of a number of stories on the way in, and a heck of a number of stories on the way out. But if you've got to get them to lodge, figure out a way to get them there, because that's part of keeping your lodge viable, is to get the past master back. And the older members that perhaps never went through the line. It's incumbent upon us to watch our brother. It's incumbent upon us to see if we can keep them involved and keep our lodge strong. It is not the number of Masons involved in the program that indicates strong involvement. It's the quality and commitment of those who are actively involved that determine the strength and outcome of the program. You can have 35 people, but if none of them are standing up to take a leadership role, and everybody's sitting on the sidelines waiting for someone else to do it, it'll never get done. A strong lodge could be a lodge of 25 men. But if they all come and they all contribute and they all work, then it's a strong lodge. It's not the volume of members, it's the number of people in that lodge and the strength of their commitment to that lodge. That's how you keep a strong lodge. I belong to a lodge in Forks, it has 54 members. I belonged to it because I wanted to. I liked the people out there. So I joined it and I became a life member. So that when I pass to the Celestial Lodge, they'll have an income every year in perpetuity based on my 2 life memberships that I have out there. I don't get out there but once or twice a year. But I wanted to help them. But the guys that I met out there were strong Masons. They didn't have a heck of a number of Masons, but they had strong Masons. And that doesn't mean that they were ritual perfect or floor work perfect, but they were there and they had it in here. Ritual lives here. Masonry lives here. And so they may not have been perfect in ritual and perhaps might raise the eye of a deputy or two, but they had it in their hearts. And that's a strong lodge. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for strength. Brother Mike, you all right?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, sorry.
That's quite all right. Quite all right. I don't mean this, are there any questions to me? When you're in the lodge and you say, my brothers, do we have any questions? Does anybody have anything to offer for the good of humanity or of this, for the masonry of this lodge in particular? If there's a question that needs to be asked, don't come to me with a question unless you have, come to me with at least 2 solutions. And a lot of times, come up and say, Worshipful Master, we have problems with this, and turn around and walk off. So wait a minute, stop, wait. Time out. What kind of a problem is it? Who created it, and how do we solve it? And that makes them buy into the problem rather than just handing it to you. So always remember that if you're going to go to the master with a problem, have a couple of suggestions on how to solve it. And if you don't have those suggestions yourself, ask one of those past masters. They may give you a loaded opinion, but at least you will have allowed them to voice it. You will encourage them by that. That's indirect encouragement, incidentally, because they'll be more interested. If you ask them their opinions, maybe I do still have something. Maybe someone will ask me a question that I can answer. Maybe someone will do this. And I've seen guys walk away after a tour as master, and they're just like whipped puppies. And they don't want to do anything because it was a hard year for them. And it was a hard year because they didn't prepare for their year correctly. They didn't start preparing for their year until they got there. And that's a tough one. You start preparing for your year when you're the junior deacon and you're watching everybody fall on their swords. You think, man, if I can possibly help it, I'm not going to do that. And grab all the good ideas and run with them. But you have to prepare early. You have to know who your members are. You have to be able to go out and meet your counterparts. How many people here, how many are senior wardens here? All senior wardens? 1, 2, 3. Do you know every other senior warden in your district?
Just about.
Do you know every other senior warden? No.
No, sir.
Okay. That's your resource pool. If you come to a lodge one night and you're the worshipful master and the junior warden says, we don't have any dinner, and the senior warden's not there, and so on and so forth, and you know these other brothers, and you ask them, can they pro tem, and they say, certainly I'll pro tem, because they know you, because you've been to their lodge, then you have a resource pool to help you effectively get through your meeting. Okay? You've got to develop your resource pool, and that's where the planning stuff comes in. When you hit that chair and that man puts that hat on your head and says, Master, behold your lodge. Brother, behold your worshipful master. Worshipful master, behold your brother. Brother, behold your worshipful master. That's it. You are now in charge. And you go, oh, no. And it gets really warm up there. I'm going to tell you that. It does. It gets warm. But if you've got a couple of past masters to help you and encourage you along the way and help give you some building blocks, to make your year better than start building when you're at least, I would say, at least a senior deacon. I wouldn't start planning when I was the junior warden. I'd start planning when I was a senior deacon. Now, if you get thrust in the position of senior warden and you've been a member of the lodge for 2 days in a wake-up, then you got a lot of planning to do. And I've seen some lodges that do that. Take a new raised master mason and make him the junior warden. Now, how good a fit is that? I mean, it's just not fair. It's not fair at all.
It's amazing the number of men who don't prepare for being master by
Yes.
starting working on their work 3 years earlier. And we
Yes.
no longer really seem to encourage that. You know, years ago, the officer's handbook said, when you're this office, you should be learning this and this and know this.
That's correct.
And so on and so forth, progressive. So that by the time you were installed as pastor, you'd done or learned or performed.
Each individual lodge is unique unto itself and its own makeup and character. It's up to you to find the characters, allow them to wear the makeup, and develop a well-rehearsed play entitled Making a Strong Lodge. That is a difficult row. You can achieve it. The point I was trying to make through this whole presentation is if you are going to have a past master's corps that's strong, you will have a strong lodge. One of the strongest, if not the strongest lodge that I have visited in the grand jurisdiction of Washington is Silverdale Lodge number 311. It has a powerful past master's corps. Every single man who has been the master of that lodge is in the past master's pool. And if he's not sitting on the sidelines, the other past masters that are sitting there will ask him why he was not there. They are involved, they offer counsel, they teach, they drive the younger masons, they cause them, they make them achieve. They have the courage of excellence and they demonstrate it. If you have, and I am certain that Luz Baminda Lodge 317 is probably similar in makeup because it's from a group of men who are basically, most of them are Filipino Americans, and they have become masons for masonry in the Philippines is a whole different ballgame than it is in the United States. It's highly respected. It is highly sought after. To become a mason is just an honor and a privilege, and they fully understand it and they live up to it. And they work hard at it. And I'm proud to be a member of 311. I'm a member of that lodge, and I enjoy it because those guys take it seriously. Their fellowship at their dinners is wonderful. Their presentations and their floor work is absolutely spot on. Their dedication to the community is without question because they got a strong past master's group. And I submit to you that each and every lodge in this grand jurisdiction could have it if they developed it. It doesn't have to be 37 past masters, it can be 3, but if they offer strength to the lodge and you have a strong past master's group. It's the number of people that are willing to dedicate their time and their energies to keeping the lodge alive and mentoring and teaching the younger men that is going to make you or break you. And if you don't keep the past masters in your lodge active and involved, then you probably will be on the law of diminishing returns. And I know that times change and the tempo changes and masonry is changing and some of us are reaching the twilight. But it's important that we carry the message to our graves that we need people to follow us. And I don't mean to our grave either, I mean to follow us in masonry. So to that end, I would ask that you sit down for a couple of minutes and write out some notes on how you believe you can enhance your mentoring pool and your past master's corps in your lodge, and then we'll adjourn. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I've got about 10 minutes left. And they told me I had to stick by the clock.
Going back to Silverdale,
Yes, sir.
I was the only senior warden from District 3 that was in the competition.
Huh?
So I kinda had a free, advancement, but I did sit in the, when their senior warden did his session.
Al Bahada?
And I was very impressed at the amount of brothers that showed up to support him.
That's another thing. The warden's competition. When you go to warden's competition, when you're a junior, when you're a senior warden, and you go to the competition in your district, you try to take as many members of your lodge with you to give you support, and they take the chairs that you're supposed to fill, and you're supposed to do the ritual of the master and the opening and closing on a certain degree. And it is better to have members of your own lodge filling those chairs than it is to have people on the sidelines or not have enough people to fill the chairs, and you sit there and you're talking to a blank wall because you don't have anybody to interact with. Silverdale will turn out, they'll fill every chair. And it's important to be able to do that and ask the past masters to come and support you when you do your work and to offer you some assistance and help if at all possible. I'm not here to be Silverdale's bandwagon. I'm just telling you here that I'm terribly impressed with their mentor, with their past masters pool. And that's what caused me to start looking at past masters about 6 or 7 years ago. And I realized that I wasn't being dutifully employed as a past master of Franklin. But that was also because I had moved on to a couple of other lodges and become members of them. One of the things I would like to say to you is that if you're not comfortable in the lodge that you're a member of now, don't quit going to lodge. Find a lodge that you can be comfortable in, and perhaps you may want to make a plural membership and then move on. Sometimes we get into a lodge and we find out that it's I like masonry, I love masonry, but I'm tired of the bickering. I'm tired of the negative attitudes. I'm tired of the, I can't do this, we did it this way, we always did it this way. I'm tired of it because we're not progressing. We're marking time. And you don't want to mark time and you want to improve yourself in masonry, then perhaps you need to find another lodge. And that may sound as blasphemy, but it's not. It's a real thing.
You know, the master of the lodge is a very short period of time.
Absolutely.
You know, and all of a sudden, the master is now a past master. But he was an officer in that lodge 9 times out of 10 for 7 straight years
Yes.
before he got to be a master. And so if they just put him out to pasture right after that, he's kind of, oh my, you know, what am I worth now?
Exactly.
You know, I
It's
mean,
a feeling of self-worth and
yeah.
loss of dignity. You don't want to do that.
yeah.
I have broken every rule by quitting 7 minutes early. If you'd like to sit here, please do so. If you want to enjoy each other's company, please do so. I know I'm still on tape.
Can I, something I just learned in the last class.
Absolutely.
It was, what was it, generational differences,
Yes.
which is somewhat on the same subject. There's a lot of tie-ins, where I was trying to understand how to tie in past masters, which we have tons of in our lodge. And I heard this great notion where there's a lodge that past masters sit with officers in their new chair next
Yes,
to them and,
yes.
and coach them for the first 3 months of their
Yes,
their
yes.
year.
Absolutely.
And I love that, the amount of confidence and mentorship that would lend to maybe somebody who feels like they're behind the ball a little bit more than they should be would be just huge.
And in lodges that have that many, that's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
And it's an excellent utilization of those past masters.
Yeah.
I've seen lodges where they take the past master and set him out the door and make him the titler right after he steps down as master of the lodge. Now what, and I'm asking the question, I always ask the question, of what benefit is that to the lodge? Well, we don't want him to make it, we don't want to make the current master uncomfortable because the other master is still sitting. Well, then put him up beside the guy. Put him up beside him.
There are lodges that the past master, the immediate past master, sits in the east.
Exactly, next to him for the first 3 months.
Past master, junior past master makes a great officers coach.
Absolutely.
He spent the last It's 5 to 7 years of learning all of this complex, meaningful work, and he can impart enough meaning to this work so that it is not rote memorization and delivery, and he should be used as such.
Correct. And one of the things I try to tell people, and I try very hard when I do presentations and when I speak in lodges, talk to your brothers, not at your brothers. Talk from here. Be sincere. Be direct. Be Masonic. You okay?
So when was the last time you were at Silverdale?
Oh, a couple months ago. I belong to Quilcene Jefferson 107 as well. They both meet on Monday night. So I tried to go to Silverdale on one Monday and then the next month go to Quilcene Jefferson. But like so many people, I've bitten off more than I can chew sometimes. I'm also in Scottish Rite, and I'm the director of the work, and we're getting ready to do the spring class. I'm also the keeper of the paraphernalia. I just went down to Hope William because the Hope William Valley in Scottish Rite turned in its charter, and I was able to go down and transfer assets, meaning pieces of property from Hope William up to Bremerton.
Sure.
And I got a beautiful set of lights made in 1918, a complete set of lights. And when I was over in Seattle at the Scottish Rite Valley there, they had this beautiful set of lights. And I thought, boys, if you aren't guarding the back door and I got a pickup, I'm going to get myself some lights. God, they're gorgeous lights, beautiful lights. And I went to Hope William to talk with Don Watkins, who's the PR guy, who's the personal representative down there, and a friend of mine, and had been on a committee that I've been on. He opened up this cabinet and showed me those lights. Oh, come on. Because they're exactly like the lights over in Seattle. So I got those lights. So we're cleaning them up. We're doing all those things. And so I don't get to Silverdale as often as I'd like to. For a period of time, I went almost every meeting because I didn't have a lot on my plate, but then I became a member of the leadership training committee, and then I started doing presentations, and then I started doing Scottish Rite stuff. And like everybody else, we sometimes get overly involved in, to some extent, my family. My wife was starting to suffer by my absence. She was becoming a Masonic widow. And that's one of the worst things we can ever do to our wives, is make them Masonic widows. So it's a balancing act.
Sure.
So I'm throttling back so I don't go to Silverdale or to Quilcene as often as I used to. And I only get out to Forks a couple of times a year. But I go down to Mount Moriah. I'm the installing master for Mount Moriah. I install every year down there because I'm a member of Mount Moriah. But I've encouraged the members of Mount Moriah to start learning how to do it themselves, because there'll come a time when I won't be able to drive, or I'll be just too lazy to go do it.
Some years ago, an employer of mine expressed interest in Freemasonry, and we determined that the most likely lodge for him to join would be Silverdale. I found out that they were having kind of an open house ladies' night. I knew nothing about Silverdale, but I called over there and got permission to bring this fellow by, because it's far away from where I live, so I drove over to the Peninsula and picked him up. When we arrived, and again, I knew nothing about membership of Silverdale, and I arrived and realized, wow, I'm the only Caucasian in this room. Well, it's okay, we're gonna have a good time, food smelled good. Then Brian walks up to me and he says, I'm the only black man in this room. I said, yeah, is that okay? He goes, oh yeah, we'll talk about this later. Okay, fine. They went on and did a very nice presentation, you know, after a very good dinner. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I cannot understand what the speaker is saying. I understand everything he's talking about because I saw the presentation, and I knew all the symbolism and everything else. On the way home, though, I was a little uncomfortable, and I'm driving Brian home, and I said, so, what you think? Oh, that was fine. Anything strike you? Oh, no, everything was good, just what I expected. Okay, you weren't put off at all by any language issues? And he starts to laugh. He says, you've forgotten something. By virtue of the fact that you were not in active duty military or in the Navy or whatnot, he says, I served on a carrier for 16 years. He says, I practically speak Tagalog. Not a problem. Wow. I feel very much at home in that room.
It is the quality of their work, it is the spirituality that blossoms out.
Oh, yeah, you could
that
feel the
makes that
warmth and.
lodge a great lodge. It really does. It's something that I ask myself, how can we can this and sell it?
Yeah,
How can we sell it to other lodges for a nickel? I mean,
Yep.
I'm just gonna get something out of a whole nickel. But if I could sell it to other lodges and get them to be as viable and powerful as as the brothers of Silverdale are, it would be a magnificent group of people. And that is not to say that the brothers of your lodge are not magnificent, but there's just not as many, I'm sure. Unless you come from one of the great big lodges over in Seattle. And I don't know, because I've not been to Seattle. I don't go over there because I don't speak Seattleese. I'm from South Paul, and that's why I've got a drawl, see? They don't understand. Anyway, my brothers, I hope I gave you at least some ideas. It's a delicate subject, and I don't know that there's any one solution to it, but we need to keep our past masters involved, and we need to get them to be our mentors and our coaches, and help us develop as masons. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.